let's take the perfect family photo. I stood expressionless as the camera flashes flickered in the photography studio. For 33 years, this mask had become a part of me. The ivory dress I'd chosen from the high-end boutique was selected to match Mother's taste. Kate, show a bit more smile, Mother. Elizabeth Harris's voice carried its familiar irritation. Next to her, my sister Jenny displayed her perfect smile. The pride of Harvard Medical School's valedictorian. Mother's only daughter. Jenny's characteristic innocence remained intact even at 28. You're fine just as you are, my fiancé Michael gently squeezed my hand. As a partner at a prestigious law firm, he knew everything. The relentless studying for scholarships since I was 15. Mother's merciless financial exploitation. My exclusion from family events. His presence was my emotional anchor. It had all started after Mother's miscarriage of a male child. I was the introverted daughter born instead of the son she'd wanted. A constant disappointment to Mother's expectations. Even my position as VP at an investment bank held no value in her eyes. In contrast, Jenny, born 5 years later, was the perfect daughter who fulfilled Mother's every desire. Mother's real estate company, Harris Properties, had established a solid position in Boston's social circles. However, behind its glamorous facade, the systematic abuse towards me continued. My college tuition was completely withdrawn from my account, and most of my salary was collected as a family obligation. The inheritance had already been transferred to my sister as a gift. That's a lovely photo. At the photographer's words, I nodded quietly. At this wedding, all the truths of the past 20 years would be revealed. I could feel the weight of the red folder in my suit's inner pocket. Mother doesn't know. The records of the $10 million she embezzled. My forged signatures. All the evidence is now in my hands. Michael's legal expertise had been invaluable in preparing the documentation. From the studio's large windows, Boston's cityscape was visible. Mother's real estate company building was part of that view. I gazed at my reflection in the window. No longer would I live as someone else's shadow. Well, let's start greeting the guests, Mother's voice rang out. As the star of social circles, she had already put on her perfect hostess face. She moved around the studio with a grace that belied her 58 years. My sister, following Mother, glanced at me. Her eyes held their usual guilt. However, her instinct for self-preservation had always outweighed her conscience. I smiled faintly. Soon, this facade of a perfect family photo would shatter forever. Setting the wedding date for the day before Mother's company's shareholders' meeting was part of the meticulous plan. Tomorrow, everything changes. The empire of illusions built by Elizabeth Harris will expose its truth on the most spectacular stage, her daughter's wedding. The scent of champagne wafted through the grand ballroom of the Boston Ritz-Carlton. Soft sunlight filtered through stained glass windows, casting rainbow patterns on the floor. The venue Mother had chosen exuded a fairy tale castle atmosphere. Wonderful choice of venue, the hotel coordinator remarked to me. She didn't know that this venue too had been booked with money withdrawn without authorization from my account. The white and gold decorations cast elegant light across the space where 400 prominent guests would gather. The ceiling-high champagne tower was quintessentially Mother's taste. The light prism created by crystal glasses seemed to shimmer ephemeral, like Mother's illusory image. Each table featured custom rose arrangements. Pure white roses with subtle gold leaf expressed today's wedding theme of eternal radiance. However, that eternity was about to shatter. "Harris family, please, for your photo." At the photographer's call, Mother responded with a perfect smile. In her pure white silk dress, she behaved as if today was her own special occasion. With graceful mannerisms, she drew attention from those around her. Beside her stood Jenny in a mauve-pink dress. Rumors of Mother's special order for her dress were already circulating among the guests. Guests' eyes naturally focused on Jenny, the young Harvard-educated doctor. The perfect daughter who received all of Mother's affection. And then there was me, a VP at an investment bank who had never once received Mother's approval. "Kate, move a little closer." Mother's voice carried a subtle commanding tone. I moved sideways as instructed. My wedding dress train quietly brushed the floor. The lace dress, supposedly imported from France, had been chosen to maintain Mother's appearances. With each photo, Mother tried to position Jenny prominently. "Look at our genius doctor," she boasted to those around her. "She's being promoted to department head at Boston General Hospital soon." A small wave of discomfort spread among the relatives. Everyone knew this sister wasn't supposed to be today's star. I could see the groom's family unable to hide their bewilderment. Especially Michael's mother was frowning. She was the one I had once confided in through tears. "You must reclaim your life," she had embraced me then. In a corner of the venue, Boston's political and financial elite were trying to approach Mother. Even the governor had made an appearance. Expectation for Harris Properties' new projects gleamed in their eyes. Mother was proudly discussing plans for a new high-rise development, a project funded by using my inheritance as collateral without my consent. "Beth, what a magnificent wedding," the Boston Globe publisher's wife called out to Mother. "It's just like a royal wedding." Mother smiled with satisfaction at those words. Her ambition to stand at the pinnacle of social circles was steadily being realized. Rumors about Harris Properties' new project must already be spreading. They didn't know that the company was built on the sacrifice of her daughter's life. "What a wonderful wedding," Jenny whispered to me. Her voice carried the usual guilt. She must have known everything Mother had exploited from my life. Yet she had continued to avert her eyes from the truth. Her fear of losing Mother's affection had outweighed her empathy for her sister. I nodded quietly. The red folder was already placed near the speech podium. All the video equipment was prepared too. In a corner of the venue, Michael's law firm colleagues were discreetly standing by. Their presence gave me courage. Mother was now speaking glamorously to the guests. Reigning as the queen of Boston's social circles, she didn't sense even a hint of her impending downfall. Her luxurious earrings sparkled in the chandelier light, purchased with money exploited from my salary. I touched the small remote control hidden in my wedding dress pocket. "There's no escape now." This is the moment to end 20 years of silence. Michael squeezed my hand and nodded slightly. His presence strengthened my resolve. The golden bubbles poured into the champagne tower, scattered light ephemerally. Like those bubbles, Mother's empire of illusions was about to vanish. In a corner of the venue, I was doing a final check of the program. Right after Mother's speech, my prepared video would play. I had already anonymously leaked information to the media. Tomorrow's morning papers would extensively cover the Harris family's collapse. Ready? Michael whispered in my ear. Yes, perfect. I took a deep breath. This is the beginning of a new life. No one will ever steal my life again. Distinguished guests, Mother's voice carrying a champagne glass resonated through the grand ballroom. Dressed in pure white silk, she captured 400 pairs of eyes with perfect poise, like a stage actress. Thank you all for joining us today at my beloved daughter's wedding. Her gaze was directed not at me, the bride, but at my sister sitting next to her. I'd like to introduce a special guest. My pride, my daughter, Jennifer Harris. The venue froze. It was a blatant display of discrimination and favoritism. Jenny, you are my everything. Harvard Medical School valedictorian, and now soon-to-be department head at Boston General Hospital. My sister smiled sheepishly, but anxiety flickered in her eyes. Small murmurs arose from the groom's side. And today, I'd like to announce a special present from me, Mother continued proudly. I'm gifting Jenny a luxury apartment in Beverly Hills. The balcony offers a panoramic view of the Pacific. The atmosphere in the venue shifted. Small coughs were exchanged among the distinguished guests. Was this a wedding speech? Where were the blessings for the bride? And I have one more surprise. At that moment, I quietly stood up. My wedding dress caught the light with a subtle gleam. I have a special present too. Mother's expression tensed. She knew. She knew something was hidden in my tone. Kate. Stop this now. Mother's voice carried panic. But it was too late. I pressed the remote control button. The venue's large screen slowly descended. Everyone, this is my wedding gift. The first image on the screen was a copy of a bank passbook from 20 years ago. $5 million deposited as a scholarship under Mother's signature had been withdrawn the next day by someone. This is my account from when I was 15. Evidence appeared one after another. Forged signatures. Records of fraudulent fund transfers. Fraudulent real estate transaction documents. The full scope of embezzlement totaling $10 million was being revealed. Kate. This is wrong. I can explain everything. Mother's voice trembled. The mask of the perfect social queen was peeling away layer by layer. Explain? What have you explained in these 20 years? My voice was surprisingly calm. The reason I wasn't treated as your daughter? The reason you kept exploiting my life? The venue had fallen dead silent. The governor turned away, and media representatives were pulling out their smartphones. I Didn't know. My sister's voice trembled. Did she really not know? Or did she just choose not to know? Didn't know? Your Harvard tuition came from my account. Under the name of a family obligation. Security guards caught Mother as she nearly collapsed. Her champagne glass fell and shattered with a ring. At that moment, the venue doors opened. Ms. Elizabeth Harris, we have a warrant. FBI investigators quietly approached. The color drained from Mother's face. This is not merely a family financial dispute, Michael stood up and began explaining in his lawyer's voice. Fraud, embezzlement, document forgery, and a corporate empire built on profits from these crimes. As the groom stood in support of his bride, the expressions of the attendees began to change. What was there was sympathy and understanding, and admiration for the courage to break 20 years of silence. This is not just personal vengeance, I continued quietly. Over these 20 years, Mother has extracted money from numerous young people using similar methods. Scholarship fraud, forced unfair loans, staged bankruptcies. The screen showed testimonies from new victims one after another. Young entrepreneurs, students, single mothers. Mother had preyed on their dreams and cleverly stolen their money. Elizabeth, you couldn't have. The Boston Chamber of Commerce chairman stared at Mother in disbelief. It was all pretense, wasn't it? My sister muttered, looking down at Mother. Your love, your expectations for me, everything was pretense. Mother had now completely lost her former dignity. Her makeup smeared, hair disheveled, sitting on the floor like just an aged woman. Kate, forgive me. To that voice, I quietly shook my head. Forgiveness is the court's role. The wedding had proceeded in a completely different way than planned. But every attendee understood that this was the moment of truth. The sound of an empire of illusions collapsing echoed through the grand ballroom. Boston Federal Court, Courtroom 1. Defendant Elizabeth Harris, how do you plead to the charges of fraud, document forgery, and embezzlement? Mother, having lost her former dignity, trembled slightly in the defendant's seat. Her luxury brand suits were gone, replaced by a plain navy suit. Media camera flashes captured her exhausted expression. I plead guilty. A murmur ran through the courtroom. Elizabeth Harris, president of Harris Properties and Queen of Boston Society, admitting guilt. It was a development no one had expected. Prosecution, your opening statement. The prosecutor stood up. The screen showed the full extent of 20 years of crimes. The systematic financial exploitation by defendant Elizabeth Harris goes beyond mere family issues. Using funds extracted from her eldest daughter Catherine Harris as seed money, she continued to create new victims. Evidence was presented one after another. Forged signatures. Fraudulent transfer records. Contracts bordering on extortion. The total damages amounted to $50 million. Particularly serious is the scholarship fraud case. The prosecutor presented new materials. The defendant approached financially struggling students, offered loans under the guise of scholarships, then cornered them with exorbitant interest rates and fees. Victim testimonies continued in court. Ms. Harris seemed like an angel who would save my life. A young single mother wept on the witness stand. But it was a trap. Before I knew it, the debt had snowballed. Another witness. A young startup entrepreneur. At first, I looked up to her as a mentor. But before I knew it, most of my company's shares had been taken. I quietly listened to the testimonies from a corner of the courtroom. Next to me was Michael, who had always supported me. His law firm was representing all the victims. And most malicious is that she attempted to pass on these methods to the next generation. The prosecutor presented new evidence. Records of emails mother sent to my sister. They detailed the methods of fraud. Sister, I'm truly sorry. My sister whispered from another part of the courtroom. She had appeared as a witness and admitted to maintaining silence despite being aware of mother's crimes. Her medical license was suspended. Now she volunteers at a rural clinic. Outside, media was swarming. The Boston Globe had organized a special investigative team, launching a series that delved into the social structures behind mother's crimes. What this case demonstrates is the systemic structure of exploitation in upper-class society, sociologists explained on TV programs. Exploiting the vulnerable behind a facade of charitable activities. Concealing it with social status. This is truly modern aristocratic extortion. Harris Properties stock price plummeted. Business partners canceled contracts one after another. The empire mother had built crumbled like a sandcastle. Catherine, what do you think is the significance of this trial? As I left the courthouse, reporters threw questions. I answered quietly. This trial is for all those who have been forced into silence. Michael placed his hand on my shoulder. And it's also the beginning of a new life. In the courtroom, the battle between prosecution and defense continued. But the conclusion was already visible. Mother's empire had completely collapsed, and a new era was about to begin. The court, considering the severity of the defendant's fraudulent actions' impact on society. The judge's voice resonated. Mother just kept her head down. Her former glory was completely gone. The sentence was harsher than expected. 15 years in prison. And forfeiture of all assets. Furthermore, the court orders the establishment of a victim relief fund. Faint applause arose from the gallery at the judge's words. All of Elizabeth Harris's assets will be used for victim compensation. They will also fund educational programs to prevent similar victims. After the verdict, we began new activities. The establishment of the Financial Abuse Prevention Center. This became an institution to support people who suffered similar damage and provide preventive education. Michael's law firm promised full support. The media dubbed this movement the Harris Revolution. The reality of financial abuse became known to society, and voices calling for legal framework grew stronger. Financial abuse is the most invisible form of abuse, I testified at a congressional hearing. It binds victims with chains disguised as love. We must break this cycle. Mother's empire had collapsed, but that wasn't the end, it was a new beginning. By speaking the truth, we could change many people's lives. That conviction supported our activities. 2 years later, the former queen of society lived alone in a small apartment in suburban Boston. Elizabeth Harris still maintained her habit of waking at 6 a.m. However, now her day began with modest toast and tea instead of luxurious breakfasts. It's time for psychological counseling. The facility staff quietly knocked on the door. Mother was under a special program during her sentence. A rehabilitation program combining psychotherapy with community service. Yes, I'm coming. Mother's voice had lost its former arrogance. Instead, there was fatigue and a hint of regret. Meanwhile, my sister Jennifer was working as a doctor in a small town in Maine. Working in community healthcare, she found true fulfillment for the first time. Thank you, doctor. A poor fisherman's wife bowed deeply to her. The reputation of my sister's free house calls was gradually spreading in this town. I think I finally understand what Sis meant by true happiness, she writes to me once a month, conveying her feelings of guilt and gratitude in honest words. The Financial Abuse Prevention Act has finally passed. Michael excitedly showed me the newspaper. This law, nicknamed the Harris Law, clearly defines financial abuse between family members and establishes strict penalties. Your testimony was a major turning point. While working as CEO of an investment firm, I continued awareness activities. Delivering victims' voices to society and expanding the circle of support. People gather from across the country for weekly lectures. I had the same experience. Hearing your story gave me the courage to speak up for the first time. Their words warm my heart. 2 years after the wedding revelation, society was definitely changing. Major banks had introduced early detection programs for financial abuse. Schools had begun teaching about healthy family relationships. What's your lecture schedule? Michael asked. Chicago this weekend. Then San Francisco. Our activities had spread nationwide. Sometimes it feels tiring. However, the fulfillment of living a new life is irreplaceable. There's a message from the support center, my secretary reported. Consultation numbers are up again this month. I nodded quietly. People suffering in darkness were finding light one by one. It might be slow progress, but I could feel definite change happening. Tomorrow's the Foundation Board meeting. The Financial Abuse Prevention Foundation had grown to have branches in all 50 states. With increasing corporate support, our activities were steadily expanding. And occasionally, letters arrive from Mother. I won't ask for forgiveness. I just want you to know I'm proud that your courage is saving many people. Every time I read these letters, I remember how that decision at the wedding ended up changing so many lives. What would you like to do with the letter from your mother? Michael gently asked. I'll write back someday. But not yet. I look out the window. Boston's cityscape is bathed in sunset. Like the light of a new era, slowly spreading.